Okay, and let me find Dr. DeWild. Participants, Dr. DeWild, more. Okay, you are now the host, Dr. DeWild, so you should be able to share your screen.
Yep, I see that. I'm going to hold off on sharing for just 1 second and just welcome
Certainly.
everyone.
Certainly.
We might have, another person or two that joins us, but I'm going to get started. I'm glad to see you all. It's a smaller group today, which is nice in terms of like the ability to kind of connect and see what questions you have. I'm going to kind of give like a more of a formal presentation for about 15, maybe 20 minutes, kind of depends on how fast I talk. And then when that's done, I will go ahead and see what questions you might have if there's anything on your mind. So this is the open house for both clinical mental health counseling and school counseling. And so I'm going to do my best to kind of talk across both tracks. So my name is Marcia DeWild. I am the school counseling program director, but I'm also an associate professor of counseling. And so I teach across both clinical mental health counseling and school counseling, as do all of our faculty in our program. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. I'm hoping that everyone can see it okay. Does it look, everyone see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Yep. Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and just kind of talk you through different things. So to start, my plan for tonight is just to kind of broadly give an overview of both clinical mental health counseling program as well as the school counseling program. Part of that is going to be chatting a little bit about what our program of study looks like, which is the way that we kind of make a plan for the courses that you take and the practicum and the internship experience, and talk a little bit about the kind of hours you need to accrue for your field experiences, and then briefly speak to the admission process as well at the end. So as you can see from this screen, I really think of us as, so we're housed within the Department of Counseling and Applied Behavioral Studies, and we're really two programs. So we're school counseling and clinical mental health counseling programs, but there is a great deal of overlap, and really counseling is kind of the umbrella. And then there are two opportunities within that in terms of kind of almost specializing in terms of your interest. So on the school counseling side, those who attend and graduate from our school counseling program become certified school counselors in elementary, middle, and high schools in the state of Connecticut. What's really nice about a school counseling degree is that once you graduate from the program, you're immediately able to become certified by the Department of Education, and there are no additional requirements from that point forward, right? So you can kind of work across K through 12, and you're not, you don't have to specifically choose one or the other, right? So you don't have to pick middle school counseling or high school. You can do all of them and then, spend 5 years working in one setting and then move to the next one. School counselors work across lots of different, types of domains or areas, and also in a lot of different ways that we access students and work with kids and adolescents. So we do individual counseling, which is that one-on-one counseling support for kids. We do small groups, which is, usually between 6 to 8 students, and we run support groups and mental health groups, academic support groups, things like that. And then we also go into classrooms at times. So we're not teachers, but we do go into classrooms and deliver developmental lessons for kids. So the areas that are the strong focus for school counselors are social and emotional development. We also support college and career readiness for kids. And of course, because school counselors are housed within schools, we really want to make sure that we're supporting the academic development for kids. So we don't teach subjects, of course. We're not teaching math or science, but what we are doing is supporting them in terms of reducing barriers that might be getting in the way of their learning, helping them to develop study skills, time management skills, organizational skills, things like that. In addition to the things you might expect, right, which is the social emotional piece, anxiety, helping them with anxiety in the classroom or at home, helping them with challenges around bullying, behaviors, things like that. And then we have clinical mental health counseling. And so the great thing about clinical mental health counseling is also how dynamic it is and how flexible it is for students who graduate from our program, that we endorse them to become licensed professional counselors. And the great thing about being an LPC is that you can work in a lot of different settings and across a lot of different issues. So there's a real in the profession of counseling, there's a real emphasis on wellness and a strength-based approach, as opposed to purely sort of diagnosing or focusing on deficits that individuals have. So we do a lot of individual work directly with our clients. And so as a clinical mental health counselor, you can work with children or adolescents or adults, and you can do individual work. You can, again, do that small group support. And then there's also the opportunity to partner with families. And we work across a variety of diagnoses. So on the one hand, you might have in a private practice, for example, and you're working with someone, through transitions in midlife, or you might be helping repair a relationship between a child and a parent, for example. You also might be working with someone, newly diagnosed with clinical depression or bipolar disorder. You might be working in community or in a college or university, or in different agencies. So again, there's a great opportunity across both of these tracks to kind of explore and find out what's a best fit for you in the program. Whoops. Okay. So essentially some of you may have already kind of checked out our programs of study that are on the website. And so if you haven't, I do encourage you to look at that if you wanted a little bit more detail. But basically, both programs are 60 credit programs. So that means you end up taking 20 classes while you're in the program. And so we have a real emphasis on skills-based learning. So we are not a fan of lecturing. We are not a fan of kind of just like giving you information and you digesting it and walking away. Like all that we do is, experiential and kind of practicing the work that you're going to do, because we're setting you up to be, a practitioner and do this work. So we have a real skills focus. You start in the program and you take a basic skills class where you learn basic sort of listening and attending skills with individuals. Then you move into advanced skills, which is also an individual counseling skills. But then we also offer a class for group specifically. We also do a children and adolescent course, which is skills-based. And then of course there's practicum and internship. So all of those are skills classes that build on each other. And then in addition to all the skills classes, you're also taking these core classes. And some of them are listed here. We think it's really important that you are equipped to handle trauma and the trauma experiences that individuals face. We do a lot around the theories and ethics and lifespan development and all kinds of things to make sure that you're ready to work with a wide variety of clients or students, depending on your setting. So practicum and internship, there's always lots of questions about this. And so what I'll say is that let me skip to the bottom part and then kind of talk backwards. So you might choose to be a full-time student or you might choose to be a part-time. And we offer both of those because everyone has a different experience in terms of what they need. So a 3-year full-time program is you're taking 3 classes in the fall semester, 3 classes in the spring semester, and then 2 classes in the summer. And that's considered full-time, and you will spend 3 years before you complete it. And then part-time adds a year. So you will, instead of finishing in 3 years, you're finishing in 4 years. And the difference is a class, right? So you can see that as a part-timer, you're taking 2 classes, fall, spring, and summer. What we usually recommend is that if you are a full-time worker, like you are employed somewhere and you're working 40 hours or more, we do encourage you to consider coming in part-time. And if you are working part-time, then we think full-time would probably be appropriate for you. Can you be a full-time student and a full-time employee somewhere? Yes, we have had folks who have done that before. It is a very important thing to consider, like, can you put aside other things in your life during that time, right? Because that's a big commitment to make. Sometimes we let folks in the first year switch from full-time to part-time and back. But after the first year, we don't recommend doing that because it can kind of affect your graduation date. But that's something just to kind of think about what makes sense for you. And then for prac and an internship, the prac for school and clinical mental health is they both are just 100 hours. And if you're full-time, you're doing that your second year. If you're part-time, you're doing that your third year. And that 100 hours is over one semester. So that equates to 1 day a week at a site. The internship is kind of, there's some similarities. I'm going to break them out differently because they look a little different. But for school counseling, it's 700 hours. And you are doing that your last year in the program, whether you're part-time or full-time, it's your last year. And you are there because of the Department of Ed requirement. You have to start in August and finish in June. So it is the full year, and it ends up being 3 days a week that you're in your internship. For clinical mental health, it's 600 hours, so a little bit of a difference, but you're doing it across 2 semesters. So usually you'll do that your fall and spring of your graduating year. And again, it does usually still end up being about 3 days a week for that clinical mental health internship. We do offer also the opportunity to do both tracks, and I will be happy to take questions about that if there are specific folks who might be interested in that. But generally, I would just say, if you're interested in both, you have to come in as a school counseling master's student, then you add the clinical mental health internship to that, which makes for a very busy last year. But that is a third kind of possibility for some individuals. And we usually have a couple people in every cohort that go in that direction. And then, why do I feel like I've skipped that there? I knew I'd skipped something. So some things before I talk about admissions is just sort of thinking about why USJ is the right fit for you. There are other programs in the state, of course, in both clinical mental health and school counseling. And I think it's really important that you make the right decision for you about, is this the program that I want to be a part of? And so I've been here 10 years, and I can kind of speak to some of the things that our alums tell us. I can speak to some of the things we hear from students, and also sort of just what our site supervisors report to us. So I think, there's 3 main areas. First is the relational approach. I mean, I think this is like probably across the board at USJ is important to faculty and students and staff here, is that we really focus a lot on advising and mentoring and getting to know the individual student. So you are certainly not a number in our program. I know the name of every single student in our program, and with the exception of sometimes the mask interfering, I can usually recognize every person as they walk down the hallway. And that's really important to us because we want to make sure that we get to know you and your interests. And, if I know about an opportunity, I can think, oh, I know this student who will be a really good fit for that, for example, or, oh, this site is like perfect for this student that I know. So that connection is important. We have a cohort model, which also builds that relational approach. It sort of gives the opportunity for students to come into the program and move through it, getting to know their student colleagues, right? And so you come in, you take classes together, and you get to know one another really well, and you build those kinds of relationships, which is important. And the small class size is also kind of built on that community as well. So our prac and internship classes are around 6 students usually. Our skills-based classes, we try to keep around 12 to 14. And then even our bigger classes are sitting at 18 to 20, sometimes 21, 22, but usually we try to keep those, the ratio pretty small for that, just so that we have the ability to get to know each other, and you get that individualized approach. Within the classroom, I mentioned we are not, big into, just sort of that lecture-based throwing information your way. So experiential learning is really important to the faculty here, and that's what students expect, I think, from being in the program. So we do that lots of different ways. We do role plays in class. We do practice sort of like case study work and scenarios. We do a lot of discussion. We do a lot of partner stuff, a lot of team-based group stuff. And you get a lot of feedback in the moment. You get live supervision in class, you submit, which sounds scary, but you submit some counseling recordings to us and we give you feedback. And so it's just really important to kind of have that interaction with students. And so you're constantly connecting and learning and getting feedback. And then the final thing, I think we just have, a great reputation in the community. I think that our alums give back to us all the time. They want to become site supervisors. They want to come back and guest speak in our classes. And so we build that reputation in the state and across all the state, but especially, of course, around West Hartford and the USJ community. And so we have a great network. We have great alums and we have great site supervisors and who can provide you great practicum and internship experiences. And we also connect with our professional associations. So the Connecticut Counseling Association, the Connecticut School Counseling Association, and our students end up being graduate representatives there, or networking at conferences. And we think it's really important to continue to make those connections in the wider profession as well. And here's the last one. So this is just that basic information about admission. So there is an online application. We are a fall start program. So if you are interested in applying to the program, we're going to be looking at this upcoming fall. Right now, we are rolling admission. So there's an opportunity to apply for the fall. We do at times say that students could take 1 or 2 classes in the spring in special circumstances, but for the most part, we like to keep the cohort coming in the same semester. And all the documents, you need transcripts, letters of recommendation, a letter of intent, and a resume. We don't have a GRE or any kind of entrance exam. The important thing is to just note that for the school counseling side, there is a requirement to take the praxis exam within the first year in the program. So it's not an exam you have to do to get into the program. It's not related to admission, but once you're in the program, the Department of Ed requires you take it for certification, and they require you take it, but there aren't any real like passing requirements. So there's an opportunity to take it, and then we'll set up like a remediation plan if you didn't pass one of the subjects. And so it's not something to get overly stressed about, but I do think it's important to mention it. All right, so I am going to stop sharing. And I'm going to see if there are any questions. And probably the best way to do this is since it's a small group, if you want to maybe just raise your hand, or you can even put something into the chat if that's more comfortable for you. I know it was a lot of information. Yeah, Abigail.
Some questions about the internship and practicum things.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that these are 4 credits, as
Yes.
in you'd like get 1 credit thing. Do you then have to pay for that credit?
So what happens is that while you're in practicum and internship, you're also enrolled in a seminar course. So during practicum, you take a regular class and you meet once a week with an instructor. And so you're paying for the practicum class. And then for internship, same thing. So you're enrolled in internship and you're paying for that class, but there's no additional payment or credit, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, I mean, some programs, it seems like it's almost pay to play for their internships, where like you are going to have to pay them to do the internship, and that's
No, we don't pay our site supervisors either. So they're all volunteer based for our program. So they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They do it because they love it and because they think it's important to give back to students. And so they're choosing to supervise.
Gotcha. And who finds the internships?
So it's kind of a collaborative effort. So I like to think of it in the middle of the two things. So on the one hand, we don't tell you where to go. So we don't place you. And the reason we don't do that is we don't want you to be placed in a place that doesn't fit for you, right? That's an hour away for driving or doesn't fit what your specialty area is or what your interests are. On the other hand, we don't let you just go out and just go for it and pick any site that you want. So what we do is kind of advise you through the process. So on the school side, you'd meet with me. On the clinical mental health side, you'd meet with Susan Lester, our department chair, and you will have get sort of a list of targeted sites that we have site supervisors and alums based on what you tell us you're interested in. So you say, I want to work with children and I want to be in a middle school and I want to stay within 20 miles of this town. So I'll say, okay, here are the places we've had within the last 5 years that were successful. And here are our alums and here are our site supervisors. And then we have you make the contact, but we sort of support you in that process.
And that goes for both the longer internship and the shorter field experience as well?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And we find that prac is where you need the most support because it's the first time that you're doing it. And so a lot of folks tend to do better with finding internship sites, but we will give you as much as you need. So if you want to meet several times, individually to make that work, or you feel more comfortable kind of getting a list of places and going for it on your own, sometimes it's kind of tailored, it really just depends on the student and like what they're needing from us and how we can help. So I'm seeing a question in the chat. I just want to address that and then I will get right to you, Joe. So our classes in the evening. Yeah. So thank you for asking that question because I neglected to mention it. It's important. So our classes are all starting at 4 o'clock and later. They are only Monday through Thursday. So we do not have any Friday, Saturday, or Sunday classes. And so they meet once a week. So if you have a class, it will meet once a week from 4 to 6:30 or from 6:45 to 9:15 p.m. So if you're full-time, for example, that might get stacked. Like you might come on Monday and have 2 back-to-back classes. So you might be here from 4 to 9:15 p.m. and then come on a second night from like 4 to 6:30. Or sometimes, depending on scheduling, you'll be here 3 times a week if you're full-time. It kind of depends, and every semester is a little bit different, but we leave all the daytime hours, flexible for folks to work because a lot of our students are working full-time during the day. And so we want to make sure that that's available to them. And then by the time you get to internship, you'll need some of that daytime hours to do, your hours for your site. Joe, you had a question.
Yes, sorry. I see on the website that you're KCREP certified, but you're in the process of recertification for KCREP. How is that going to affect people going in when they want to be KCREP certified?
Yeah. I love that you have done that research. That's very exciting.
I'm doing this to work with veterans. I'm a veteran myself.
Great. Okay, good. Yeah, so we are, KCREP is an accrediting body for counseling and related disciplines. And so it's an 8-year accreditation cycle. And so naturally at the end of 8 years, every program needs to go up for a reaccreditation. So right now, because of COVID, KCREP has had some delays in terms of like getting their site visits accomplished and things like that. And so that's the only reason it's pending right now. So we have had our self-study completed. It has been accepted. We have, so we're just in the scheduling of a site visit. Our site visit will probably occur in, I would say, we're hoping for May or June. So by the time, the board meeting is in July, this is a lot of information for y'all, but in July, the board meets. And so then they will be able to issue the reaccreditation for the sometimes it's a 2-year if there's like little things, but we're expecting a pretty successful site visit. So right now there's nothing standing in our way of that occurring. If for whatever reason KCREP needs to postpone again, they just keep our accreditation until the site visit occurs, right? So it's not like it ends at any particular point.
Okay. For the because you're the closest university with KCREP certification for the program of study that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Does the internship hours vary? Because I know on the KCREP website it's supposed to be like 1,000 hours of internship. Does that mean when I am applying for my internship, it's going to increase from the 600 to 1,000, or am I just doing 600 and then have to do the 400 somewhere else?
I'm not sure where you're getting the 1,000 from, but the KCREP standards require a 100-hour practicum and a 600-hour internship, and that is a KCREP requirement, and it's why we have that as our requirement. They are doing new standards, but I have seen absolutely no indication that they're planning to change those hours. They've been pretty stable this whole time. You may be referring to, as a clinical mental health student, once you graduate, that you will need to still get 3,000 hours while being supervised. So you can graduate and work and kind of be almost independent, but you technically need to have a supervisor until you've accrued those 3,000 hours for your licensure. I don't know if that kind of helps or clarifies. Yeah.
That's I believe I saw it on the KCREP website that most certifications are 1,000 hours for internship. That's why I was asking, because I saw on the St. Joseph's website that you only did 600 hours for intern. So I was kind of confused about where the other ones went. But if it's always been 600, then I'm completely fine of not doing the extra. Yeah.
We're very careful to always follow KCREP requirements. So if they ask us to move it up, we'll do that, but I see no indication that would change at this point.
Now, do I have to apply to get KCREP certification, or since I'm enrolling into St. Joseph's, I automatically get that? How does that work?
Yep.
I'm not quite
Yep,
sure.
that second piece. So if you are a student and you graduate from our program and we are KCREP accredited, then there's nothing else you need to do. You are a KCREP accredited graduate.
Awesome.
Dr. DeWild, if I can interject, there was a question from Kelly McDermott asking in regards to the internships being a paid experience. I don't have that information.
Yeah,
If you'd be
so
able to share.
the vast majority of the time, unfortunately, no. That's just simply how it goes. However, we don't stop you from having a paid internship. So there's no like rule that you can't be paid. If you happen to find a paid internship, excellent. I think the piece for that is, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. So there's, the reason they're not paid is just because within our profession, they're typically not paid, and we don't pay our site supervisors. So they tend to be unpaid, but just this year, one of my students did get a paid internship, but I just don't want to make any promises because most of the time, no, is kind of how it goes.
How do people who are full-time workers and manage the internship component without being able to continue making
Oh, no, it's a great question. So here's what I would say. Everyone's story and journey is different. So there's no specific way that I see this being done, but I would say something that commonly occurs is that our full-time students are coming in as part-time, our full-time workers are coming in as part-time students, right? So they know they're in for a 4-year grad school experience. They spend the first 3 years working full-time and being successful in the program. They know that their last year, they're going to be an internship. So typically what they do is they will either drop hours at work, if that's possible within wherever their work setting is, or they will change jobs, knowing that in 1 year, they'll be graduating and trying to get a counseling position anyway. And that transition is naturally going to be occurring for them. So a lot of our interns are it's 3 days a week. So they're working on the weekends. They're maybe working on the other 2 days during the week. They're working in the evenings, potentially. Sometimes they'll get like a graduate assistantship on campus to kind of fill in a little bit of that. But it is, that year, it's just making sure that you have 3 years to kind of plan for it and make decisions around it, knowing that it's your last year before you graduate and get into the profession. I'm seeing chat, and then I'm going to come to Kelly in 1 second. What's the average age of students and how many are heading into their second career? That's a great question. So I can't tell you that I have the specific numbers. I know we have them for our K-CREP accreditation, so I just don't have them off the top of my head. But I would say we have a good mix. So every cohort looks a little bit different. I would say about, from just sort of eyeballing it, we're about 50% maybe who are new to any profession. So they're graduates from college, or they are have been maybe working just 1 year and then they're coming to us. I would say then probably about 25% of our students are a little bit established. So they're maybe have been working for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years potentially in some profession, maybe related. Like we have a lot of paraprofessionals, for example, who come to us, or a lot of teachers who come to us, or a lot of folks who work in related fields. And then I would say maybe that other quarter, so about 25%, have been working for 20, maybe 30 years in a completely unrelated profession potentially. And then they come to us, and this is sort of a second pathway for them. I can't promise that's a perfect, it looks perfectly like that, but that's sort of like my experience over the last decade teaching is that it tends to be sort of like that. Kelly, you had a question for me.
Yes, I was wondering if graduate students generally live nearby in apartments or anything, if the school helps with graduate housing.
So I would say that, oh no, please go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, we don't offer graduate housing on campus, but I do have a network through one of our other programs, Doctor of Pharmacy, that we can potentially recommend housing opportunities, not necessarily discounted, but we can definitely provide you with information where you could live that is local.
Great, thank you. I think that we have a lot of variety in where people are living and who they're living with and what that looks like. So
Yeah.
like we have a lot of folks who live close to campus, and then we have others who are commuting from, fairly far away. I mean, it is important to note that we are mostly an on-campus, in-person program. And so of your 20 classes, 18 of them are on ground. Only 2 are online at this time. So that is something, like, I know we've been remote and kind of high flex and all over the place these last couple of years, but that's important for folks considering the fall, that they need to be able to come to campus 2 to 3 times a week.
And I think you're going to find that with many helping professions. It's not easy to train someone online to be a physical impact on people's lives. So it's pretty important that you participate in a physical experience with the university in regards to pursuing a program of this type. Like I said, we don't necessarily offer graduate housing, but a lot of people who found out about this program either have friends or family that are nearby, or like I said, we are in an urban metropolitan area. You might need to take the bus to get from downtown, but it's only like a 5-minute ride. So those are things to just consider. And in a helping profession, you need to be physically available. And that's personally, as an admissions representative, I find it really hard to understand how you want to do a program of this type where you're dealing with people physically in a face-to-face situation, and you want to do your education online. And that's what's the impetus of USJ's program, is to make sure that you have those skills that you can sit across the table and have those communications with individuals that are meaningful in their life.
I actually live 40 minutes away. I was definitely curious if I didn't know if I'd find people in the program who, when I'm looking at apartments, who also live nearby.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's great to know.
Okay, you're very welcome, Kelly.
Yeah, and I'm also happy, like, to make connections with our current students. So if anyone decides that they're coming here and they want to email me to ask these kind of individual conversations too, I can always chat with our students and see if they recommend anything or if they're looking for roommates and things like that. I mean, it's just a great network of students. So I think that's always a possibility. So I'm seeing more chats in you guys are like, good questions. I don't know if I can answer them, perfectly for you all. So I might need a little help with this one, but the clinical mental health versus marriage and family counseling program for someone who wants to work with individuals, key differences. So I can speak to like some of the practice differences out there, but I can't speak to the structure of the MFT program in terms of like their internship requirements and how long it takes. Like, I just don't personally have that information, but I can just tell you that I actually have a couple MFT students in my class right now who are taking my crisis and trauma classes and elective. So I have spent time with MFT students, and I do think there is a lot of like shared connections in terms of, our focus on helping professionals and mental health focus and all of that. I think philosophically, there are some differences. On the counseling side, we really focus on a holistic wellness mindset and framework and a real sense of like the individual and their strengths and resources and what they bring to the table. I think on the MFT side, there seems to be a strong emphasis on the systems perspective and the ability to connect and support with family members and within the different systems and structures that they operate. I think that counseling has always been how can we support you and really focus on some of those coping strategies and some of the ability to get folks out there and successful in their life. And I think MFT has really held a really strong emphasis on the therapeutic process and the underlying things that are going on with individuals. Not that we don't address that, but I do think like there might be some slight differences there. I think still counseling is a little bit more of an individual platform. We bring in supports and others like family members, but it's individually focused. And I think MFT still operates with the importance of like the family and the system and sort of couples, less so than like the one-on-one piece of it. So if I have someone on MFT faculty, like they might have said that very differently, but that's sort of my perspective as a counselor. So
Agreed, Marta.
Okay.
Yeah, very well spoken. Thank you.
All right. And so what is the school's response to COVID and the internships as well? Our site screen for COVID regulation safety. Good question. So I think the university response is maybe a little bit different than the site response. And so we navigate those things all the time. I think it's changing constantly. So what I say now might not be true in a few months, but at this point in time, the university has done a really good job in terms of sort of just following CDC guidelines and state public health guidelines. And so I find that they're very much in line with those guidelines and not sort of operating outside of it. We just went mask optional like a week ago, I think. But I think we've erred on the side of caution and there's been, expectations of being fully let me make sure that I understand the vaccination. At this point, my understanding is all students have to be fully vaccinated and
Correct.
boosted, right? Okay.
Correct. And we're looking for boosters, evidence of boosters by April 15th, I believe.
Okay.
And it's all in an effort to keep the community safe. We're a small family, we're a
Yeah.
small community, and we've done very well. Not more than 5 or 6 at a time
Mhm.
in a monthly basis. So staff and faculty and students are at a mask optional basis right now.
Mhm.
Personally, I feel comfortable within my nucleus in the admissions office and moving about. When I do go outside of my building, this is just a personal thing. I put my mask on because I don't necessarily know who's out there.
Mhm.
And I think that to err on the side of caution is probably the best effort that we can all put forward at this time.
Yeah, and I think sites are varied, like some of the clinical sites might be in hospital settings or might be in like outpatient programs where they might be holding requiring masks for longer than the university might. I mean, if you're in a school, for example, it's, as you know, it's been mask mandates up until very, very recently, and now the schools are moving to mask optional. So those might also operate differently. So I do think there has to be, some flexibility and understanding that what's happening at your site is not necessarily what's happening at the university and vice versa. But I do think that what I have so appreciated from our group of students is that they're all understanding that they're working with vulnerable populations. They're all, demonstrating empathy for others. So whatever their own comfort level is, I always see them looking to the group. Like, what does the group want? We kind of like collaboratively discuss what works best for everybody in there, which I just think is it's different and really important.
Exactly. And then I'm sorry to add on to that, Marta. That's exactly what we're looking for in that kind of helping profession.
Yeah.
Is to think of others.
Exactly. So I am seeing, when should we apply to get accepted for the fall? Tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say now. Yes, exactly.
No, I mean, I think you have a little more time than that.
You have a little bit more time, but we like to make sure that we know what our resources are. And those that are going to be joining us, we want to make sure that there's class sizes that are available if we have to open other sections. It's just the opportunity for the university to make sure that we can accommodate, all that are interested. So earlier is better than later. Classes for fall typically start in late August. Yes, we're in March, but if we can get a concrete decision by May 1, would make it a lot easier for us to plan those resources.
Yeah, and we also do cap our numbers, right? So
Yes.
It's important to know that we have to follow KCREP guidelines and they're not guidelines, they're requirements around faculty student ratios. And so once we have accepted the number of qualified individuals, we reach a point and then we've got to kind of roll it over to the next year. So it's just something to kind of be mindful of. But I think get it together in the next couple of weeks, I think is certainly completely reasonable.
Yeah, and the application's not that intense. I mean, we're looking at all official transcripts. If you transfer credits into your undergraduate degree, we're looking for those supporting transcripts. We need 2 letters of recommendation. The application is really simple. It's set up where we ask you for a professional email address so we can send an email to that individual and give them a link that they upload your statement right into the application. The other items are, excuse me, a resume and a program essay. Why are you interested in joining this program? What are your plans once you complete the degree? What is it that you want to commit to the community or support within the community? So it's really, it's not taxing. And your visit with us this evening guarantees you a $50 application fee waiver. That's our standard fee is $50. So by participating in this particular session and those subsequent sessions that we have, we'll waive that fee. So it's basically a free application. There's no deposit. We'll run through the the whole process, give you a decision, and we go from there.
Mhm. Did you see the question about transcripts? Do you mind answering that about whether they can come directly from the school or can they send it?
Our transcripts do have to be official, which means that they need to come directly from the school. And obviously, since COVID, everything has moved to an electronic basis. So basically, you just go to the registrar's link at your school of attendance, look for the transcript section, order the transcript, or you can just go through Parchment. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular electronic transcript service, but it's Parchment, PARCHMENT.com. You can order from your school to come to our school, and it will just move to us electronically. We upload it into the application and everything is fine.
Yes, Joe.
For I have a few questions, but for the internship, are you only doing internships in the state of Connecticut, or do you do in Massachusetts as well?
We do not have any sites in Massachusetts. So they are in Connecticut. Yeah.
Oh, in Connecticut. Okay. And is there a point of contact for me to use for because I'm using the veteran readiness program in the admissions office that deals with veterans? Is there a specific person, or does everyone have like the general knowledge of using that? Just so I can get like give a heads up to my coordinator that I'm dealing with at the VA to get prepared for this.
I'll take that for you, Martha. Yes, Joe, we do. That runs through our office of the registrar. And I can put their email in, but it's really simple. It's registrar@usj.edu. And we do have a dedicated individual that will monitor whatever benefits are available through the VA system.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Abigail.
I have a tuition question and I've typed it out because it involves numbers, but I just want to ask whether I should ask that here or whether this is only academic related.
I'm not going to be able to respond to that, but I'm sure that it's a good question to still ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let her go and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Okay, I just saw it come through. Okay, website. According to the website, per credit graduate tuition for this program is $837 plus $52, which it comes out to a 60 credit total of $53,340. Extra school fees on top of that, not included. Is this approximately correct? I know it is hard to give exact numbers, but is this a ballpark figure? I'm going to say yes, that is a ballpark figure. Our rates for fall 2022 just came out today. So without me leaving all of these pages that I'm on, you can probably expect it to be about $30 more per credit. So you shouldn't exceed more than $54,000 or $55,000 for the program.
And that includes the extra, because, you know, schools always throw in some sort of like activity fee.
No, our comprehensive fee is $54 that I saw when it came out at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So that was a $2 increase from last year. So it's basically a 3% increase from what our actual tuition was for the 2021-2022 semester, or academic year rather. And it comes to, yeah, I'm going to say roughly $30 increase per credit.
Okay.
And this is Kelly Abigail. I can send you the link. I'll try to get to that before we leave the session, so you can review the new rates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good.
Yes, Joe.
Sorry, I said I had a bunch of questions. I am disabled, and I have a service dog. Is there a special paperwork or anything that I need to submit in order to allow me and my service dog to be on campus?
I'll take that. We have Wednesday is wolf day. So everybody somebody brings a dog in and all the students can like interact with the dog. In addition to that, obviously we have a disability coordinator. So you would just need to go through the individual in that office. Joe, I can send you that information in a separate email. She may require a form of what your needs are, but we love pets. We love animals at USJ. Personally, I have 2 here in the house and they're sleeping under my feet. So that's not going to be a problem.
Our Office of Accessibility,
Thank
Jen
you.
Boylan, who works there, we have numerous students who work with her and we work with them. And so I think that you'll find, not find any difficulties in
No difficulty.
navigating that. But if anything does come up, please just reach out directly to the faculty, because we just have a lot of experience with working with students and supporting their learning.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Abigail.
I was wondering, let me look on here. Do most graduates of this program stay local? Do they stay in the general Hartford area? Do they go throughout the state, or do they go nationally?
When they graduate, you mean? Yeah. So the vast majority will stay in Connecticut, but that is, I think every cohort that we have a few who will move out of state. And so we do have some folks who are already living out of state. Like we have folks who live in Massachusetts and then go through the whole program while living in Massachusetts, for example. So on both sides, we have good reciprocity with other states in terms of the ability to transfer the credentials that you get here. It is really important to kind of, be doing your own research in terms of what it looks like to, in almost every case, it's really just supplying them with the transcript, especially because we're KCREP accredited. It just makes that a lot easier state to state, but supplying them with transcripts and making sure that you, have your sites sign off on the hours and then paying a fee, to be honest. And that's usually all that really stops you from being able to move out of state and have, your licensure or your certification move with you. There are a couple states, and I can't speak to the clinical mental health side just because I'm not directly involved in that, but I know on the school side, there's a couple states, and there are a couple states on the clinical mental health side that require maybe an extra course potentially in order to be able to transfer that, but that is not the vast majority of them. So usually our students do not really struggle to be able to get and move out of state. And I've had students the last 5 years moved to Virginia, moved to Florida, moved to California, like all over the place. And usually it's just paperwork and we're kind of signing off and endorsing them as a candidate.
What are some of the biggest employers around here of your graduates? Do they trend towards any place in particular?
Yeah. Are you asking for one program versus the other, or just kind of generally?
I'm more clinical mental health counseling.
Yeah. And this is where having Susan Lester, our department chair, would be lovely because she would be able to give you more specific information, because I just work so more directly with schools. And she would love email communication from you, by the way. So if you want to ask those questions, she meets individually with every student who applies for clinical mental health. So you can ask there as well. But I do know that we have several of our bigger, like Wheeler Clinic, for example. I know there's some of the colleges and universities, we often have our students get jobs there as well. But I'm not sure I'm equipped to kind of give you more specifics than that. So I think Susan's probably your best resource.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. I'm seeing one more question I think we're probably maybe 2 more questions, I think is all we're going to be able to take because of the time it's almost 8 o'clock. So for license exams needed to become an individual private therapist, does the program prepare you for any tests or licensure? Yeah, so on the school side, there are no exams or tests that you have to take. So once you graduate from the program, like I said, you just take that praxis exam. There is a national exam on the clinical mental health side that you do take when you complete your 3,000 hours post supervision. And so certainly all the curriculum and all the work that we do within the program prepares you very well for that. And then there's also resources and study guides and things like that. I don't have our exact pass rates, but they're extremely high for our graduates. So they're always successful in taking that exam. Maybe one more question? Oh, you're muted.
Brian, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I'm kind of just listening and taking some notes.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. All right, so please know that you can always follow up. I am available by email at any time, and we can also set up an individual appointment if you have more questions on the school side. And Susan Lester is a great contact for the clinical mental health program. If anything was not, adequately answered today or anything pops up over the next week or two, please don't hesitate to reach out to her, as she would welcome the opportunity to talk with you more.
Marta, could you throw your email in the chat box just before
Yeah.
we sign? Yeah, great.
And I'm going to put Susan's in here too, just because I
Okay.
know she would want to share that.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.